What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about investing specifically in our market of Surrey, Langley, Abbotsford, the Vancouver real estate market as a whole, as a buy and hold strategy. Of course, this information is subjective and some people may disagree with this, but this is personally how I feel about it. So stick around to the very end if you want to hear my approach on buying and holding investment property here in the Fraser Valley, Surrey, Langley, Abbotsford, Vancouver real estate market as a whole. My name's Conor Kelly, or That Agent Kelly, with Team Zubor Associates at Stonehaus Realty. So when it comes to investing in our market, we're not a cash flow market. A lot of investors, especially if you follow, podcasts in the States, in other countries, fundamentally, there's a lot wrong with investing in our market because we're not a cash flow positive market. However, I would argue that the cash flow isn't what actually builds wealth. The cash flow is just a defensive mechanism to protect your wealth. So if you can find a way to substitute some type of defensive tactic in place of that cash flow so you're able to hold these assets safely, then it's just my opinion that the cash flow isn't exactly necessary. So the general strategy right now that buy and hold investors are using across the United States and in other places in Canada, there's some cities in Ontario that still cash flow well, is you're buying a property that cash flows maybe $200, $300 a month, and you're taking that money and you're putting it in a bank account and you're letting it sit there for any expenses that come up, like a roof or a foundation repair or anything like that. For example, I have a cash flowing property in Windsor, Ontario that cash flows roughly $700 a month. I've let that reserve in my bank account without touching it build up to 15 grand. And that way, if any of these big ticket expenses come up, I can just take my money straight out of those reserves to help pay for those expenses. Now, here in Vancouver, as you guys know, or Surrey, Langley, Abbotsford, it's very difficult to find a cash flow property. A couple months ago, you could have bought a condo in Abbotsford that was cash flowing $200, $300 a month. But as of today, it's going to be very difficult to find anything like that. So what I would do personally is I would buy a property. Now, I wouldn't advocate for owning 5 of these properties that are all cash flow negative, $200 a month. But if you buy just one of these, and if you say, let's say you buy a $500,000 property, you put 100 grand down, maybe you take 15 grand and set it aside in a bank account. That way, over the course of the next couple years, expenses that come up and the cash flow negative situation is slowly eating away at that reserve. But hopefully by the time that reserve has been, what's the word I'm looking for? Deplenished down to the point where it's at zero, maybe you're in a position where you can either refinance your loan, possibly even sell the property, roll the amortization out further to drop your payments. Maybe rent has gone up and you're in a cash flow neutral or cash flow positive position. Now, a lot of investors are going to have a problem with this ideology. They're going to say it's not safe and stuff like that. And I agree that like I said, you probably shouldn't own 3 or 4 of these properties that are all cash flow negative, a couple $100 a month. But if you own just one and you come up with a strategy to protect yourself safely from the fact that it's cash flowing negatively, over the next couple years with rents rising, the possibility to refinance, you should be able to get yourself into a cash flow positive position. A good example of this, and I don't know if this is going to keep happening going forward because obviously past performance doesn't indicate future results, but when I bought my 2-bedroom in Abbotsford back in 2017, it would have rented for about $1,000 a month. Today, it would probably rent for $1,900 a month. So back in 2017, I was cash flow negative. Today, I'd be cash flow positive about $400 or so bucks a month. And at the end of the day, it's appreciation in real estate that makes everybody wealthy. The cash flow is nice, but no one's truly getting rich off of $2,000, $3,000 a month cash flow if they own 7 or 8 properties. It's the appreciation within those properties and the mortgage pay down that's truly building wealth. The way I like to look at Vancouver is it's like a growth stock. When you're really young, the rule of thumb strategy that most people tend to stick with is to center your portfolios around growth stocks, get that nice growth, and then further on, in your lifetime, when you're older, in your 40s, maybe 50s, you transition, maybe when you're thinking about retiring, you transition your portfolio into a dividend portfolio. Something that's not going to grow as much, but it's paying you dividends. So the way I look at Vancouver is you're buying a growth stock that's super volatile, but it's going to have big gains over the next 10, 20 years. And then later on down the line, you can transition your real estate portfolio into maybe a cash flow structured portfolio. Maybe you go to New Brunswick and you buy a 30-unit apartment building that cash flows $10,000 a month or something like that. And to add to that, cash flow in residential real estate is never really true cash flow. Sure, it might cash flow $300 a month, but at some point, there's going to be a big ticket expense that takes away years and years of cash flow that you've been saving up. So anyways, that's kind of my opinion and my thoughts on the Vancouver real estate market. I don't think that cash flow neutral or cash flow negative should deter you from buy and holding property here, unless of course you've ran your numbers and it's pretty unsafe for you to do so. If you can absorb that $200 a month hit for a couple years, I think you'll be in a pretty good position going forward over the next decade. So if you found any value in this video whatsoever, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more Fraser Valley real estate. I know there's not a lot of people out there talking about Fraser Valley real estate on YouTube, so I'm hoping that I can kind of enter into that space and be the person that tries to provide you some knowledge on what's going on in this market. I'm going to start making more videos talking about what's currently going on in the market. So if you guys could, drop a like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.